Does Germany need more babies? It's a question worth asking when you look at the latest birth rate numbers. In 2025, Germans had fewer children per person than at any point since the end of the Second World War. In fact, last year, Germany recorded around 350,000 more deaths than births. With an aging population, that imbalance is a problem, and the reforms meant to increase birth rates don't seem to be working any longer. Yet surveys consistently show Germans want families. So what's getting in the way?
The main reason for this birth decline we see is the multiple crises. So the young people are very anxious about this multiple crisis, about the COVID-19 pandemic, then the war in Ukraine, also climate change and economic hardship.
That's Professor Martin Böjar. He's the research director at Germany's Federal Institute for Population Research, and he spent his career trying to make sense of Germany's demographic change, including why Germans are having fewer children and why that matters.
The problem of low birth rates is not that the population might be shrinking, because even with a smaller population, countries can be very rich and have a high living standard. The problem is that when we have several years or decades with a low fertility rate, and this is what we have in many European countries now. In Germany, we had low fertility since the mid-70s. With fertility rates between 1.2 and 1.6.
Before we move on, let's take a moment to think about what the fertility rate actually shows us. Simply put, it takes two people to make a baby, and therefore to replace themselves. If, on average, people have around 2 children, the population remains broadly stable. If they have fewer than that, the population eventually shrinks. If they have more, it grows. Okay, back to Professor Böjar.
In Germany, we had low fertility since the mid-70s, with fertility rates between 1.2 and 1.6. So this means that we have now the second generation with low fertility. So the mother generation is smaller, and even the child generation now is smaller. And this means that small generations come into the labor market and producing the welfare we have, the high living standard. And we have much, much more older people who retire. And these young people have to pay the social system, the pensions and the healthcare for these retired persons. And so a few decades ago, like 5 young people in working age were like paying for the welfare of the older ones. And now soon it's going to be only 2 persons. So this means that the living standard of the older people get reduced, or the living standard of the younger get reduced, because a lot of their earnings go to this payment, and also the growth of the countries is very slow with low fertility. So such low fertility rates strongly reduces the welfare of a country. And that's the main point why these birth rates really have problems.
But Germany was on the right path. This recent drop follows more than a decade of rising birth rates. Since the early 2000s, the government has introduced reforms designed to make family life more compatible with modern working lives, particularly by expanding childcare and reforming parental leave. For a time, those policies worked.
We had in Germany fertility rates between 1.2 and 1.6 since 1975 until now. And on the other hand, we did not have a high maternal employment. And so German scientists and later the politicians looked at other countries and realized, oh, look, in the Scandinavian countries or in France, they have both. They have higher birth rates and they have higher maternal employment. So the game changer is a good family policy, which allows to reconcile work and family. And this is what Germany changed with the reforms we had started in 2003, 2004, with very ambitious increase of childcare slots and with changing from half-day school to full-day school, and also this income-related parental leave. So Germany kind of made a family policy as it used to be in the Scandinavian countries. And what happened a couple of years later, actually, as I protected it while they made the reform, it will take some years, but then the birth rate increased. They were by around 1.3, and they increased in the 2010 years to 1.6. So So this was a success story of Germany's family policy.
But then came the 2020s, and as we're all aware, this decade hasn't had any shortage of crises. But despite the pandemic, war, and economic uncertainty, research shows Germans still want to have children, but maybe not right now.
Mainly, the people are postponing. They're insecure because of the crisis, and this is why they postpone. And what we know from surveys, we have the FRIDA's family survey, where we ask young people, around 30,000 young people every year, about their child intentions. And actually, the child intentions remain the same. They're like 1.8 children per woman and also per man. And these child intentions had the same level at 2021. There, the child intentions were 1.8 and the fertility was 1.6. So they were kind of close. And now we have child intentions still of 1.8 and the fertility is at 1.3. So the people still want to have children. And in particular, if you ask the young generation, those aged between 80 and 29, their child intentions are even higher. They're around 2.0 in Germany. So this means they still want children, but they postpone.
So despite years of crisis and continuing economic pressure, Professor Bourgeat believes policy can still make a real difference.
One thing is really a good, affordable childcare. That's the main game changer and the main reason why we have in Southern Europe birth rates of 1.1, like Spain or Italy, and in other parts of Europe, like France or the Scandinavian countries, we have birth rates of 1.5, 1.6. And the other thing is we have to really help people, families in the rush of life, when the children are very small, that they have time for children. And the idea, both are working full-time, or also the man is working full-time and the woman, she can work part-time and then come back to full-time. That's happening in Germany often. If you really have small children and both work full-time, it's too much for most families. So you have to give the families time, not only parental leave in the first year, but I define the rush hour of life until the youngest child is maybe 5 or 6 years old and then starts school, because then they are more on their own and the parents gain more time. But the years before, it's necessary that also the fathers might reduce their working time. And what our survey shows is that the young people consider the ideal working time when the children is 2 or 4 years old, around 34 hours a week for the man and less for the woman. But when the children are older, both should work full time. And such a model would be very helpful.
There's one big question we haven't talked about yet: immigration. If the challenge is an aging society, lots of baby boomers retiring and fewer young people paying into the system, could bringing in more people from abroad help close that gap?
No, immigration is not the solution for the declining population, and in particular not for the declining age structure, because the problems we have not with the population size, we have problems with the age structure. And migration, we need migration for our labor market, of course, to buffer this, but it can only buffer this to a specific degree, because migrants also get older and they reduce their fertility very fast to the fertility in the host country. So yes, Germany needs a specific degree of migration for the labor market, in particular migration for specific labor market shortages we have, but it's not the solution for the problem we are facing because of this decades of low fertility.
So, does Germany need more babies? As we've heard, this isn't simply about people turning away from family life. Most Germans still want children, but uncertainty, pressure, and the way work and care are organized are making it harder to turn those plans into reality. Germany has shown before that policy choices can make a difference. The question now is whether it can once again create the right environment for people to have the families they want. I'm Ole Alsaker in Berlin. Thanks for watching, and until next time.